Hey everybody, welcome to Tightline Fishing Television. We're glad you're with us today. We're at a lake today that we hadn't been at in a long time, and it's kind of the end of winter, about to be early spring. And so what we want to do for you today is try to figure out where these fish are in the migration pattern between winter and spring when they spawn. So we're going to show you a little bit how to figure that out. Water temperature, the wind, the sun, all that factors in. So you guys stay with us. We're glad you joined us. So it's late winter in Georgia. We're at about a 15-20 acre small lake, and we've not been here since the fall. And so I'm trying to figure out where these fish are. So typically what I'm gonna do in a lake when it's late winter is I'm gonna start in the deepest part of the lake and look. So that's what we did. We came across the dam, 16, 18 foot of water. I'm looking at my graph to see bait. I'm looking for bait. Well, we didn't see any congregated up, so the next thing that I'm going to go to is I'm going to look at where the wind's blowing. It's about 57, 58 degree water, and I'm nearest the deep water, but I'm going to fish a little bit shallow and work a thing called a crankbait out. This happens to be a medium running Bandit 200 crankbait. This color's called root beer. It's got a little pearl, a little green. It can look like a shad or a brim. And I'm just gonna fish the corners and the dam a little bit because the wind's blowing in here and the water's warm enough that these fish might have moved up a little bit. And so that's what I'm gonna do. A crankbait is always a good search bait in the late winter, even in the winter, because they're always gonna be feeding on some kind of bait fish. And that's what a crankbait imitates. So for a while, I'm gonna fan cast this medium running crankbait. Runs about 5 to 8 foot depending on your line size, and see if we can figure out where some of these fish might be. We're going to continually though watch our electronics because you just never know. What we're looking for is big groups of shad. When you come over them, we can fish a little bit more vertically, and that's typically what you do in the winter time. So we're just searching, trying to figure them out right now. There he is. Just like that. He was up there about 4 feet deep on the crankbait. Pretty nice fish, not a big one. But that's what I love about this crankbait. You know, I made 7, 8 casts just while we were talking to you guys, whereas if I was fishing a worm, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But that's a nice little 12, 13 incher. And this may clue us a little bit too when you see these fish this time of year. Sometimes they have I'll show you, they have a lot of red in their mouth. You can kind of see red up here. My dad used to call it sign being in the mouth, but usually that means they're not far from the spawn. It also means they've probably been eating some red crawfish. So that's something we'll talk about a little later in the show. Now this pond, we're helping them manage it, so these smaller ones we're gonna keep for them today, but that's a nice one to start with. So we're in this same little spot in the corner, and right now, you know, secondary to finding bait is seeing how the wind's blowing, because the bait's not deep on the depth finder. So in a small lake like this, if the wind's blowing hard into a place, that's probably where they're gonna be. And these fish are just in this corner, probably feeding on bait that's blowing into the corner. That's another small one, but boy, is he ever healthy and fat. Get my pliers out to get him off. Yeah, crankbait late winter is hard to beat, really even through the winter. This little, you know, 4 or 5 foot running one works really good. That's a nice one. So what we were doing was we were staying near the deep water, and this is kind of the process. We caught a couple down there, but didn't really get on them good. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of moving with the wind from the deeper to what I would call a transition area, from 18 foot to like 8 or 9 foot, throwing up into 2 or 3 foot. This water's warm enough, 57, 58 degrees, they could have started moving up. So that's kind of what we're doing. We kind of call it eliminating water. And I'm just following the wind right now. And we do this for 20, 30 minutes and don't get bit. We'll go and start slowing down and looking for some fish that might be what we call tight to cover. There's a lot of wood cover in here. So that's what we're doing. We're fishing a windy bank, middle depth with this crankbait to see if they're in transition in that area. So we've been all the way around the lake, and the wind's been blowing into this bank. It's a shallower bank, but remember the water's like 57, 58 degrees, which has come up quite a bit, I would imagine, from the last couple of weeks. It's been really cold here in Georgia. And we threw a rattle trap. It's actually a red-eye shad up in shallow water. And this one had a bite and then caught this one. So you just really, this time of year, if you hadn't been somewhere in a while and you don't know what they're doing, you kind of have to work at it to figure out what they're doing. And sometimes it's not a one bait deal. Sometimes you fish 4 or 5 different things to catch them 4 or 5 different ways. That fish was up in 2, 3 foot of water. And it's not a big one, but it's a little better than the other ones. This happens to be a color called sexy shad. It's a pearl with a little chartreuse stripe and a blue back. And on cloudy days, that's a really good color. If it was sunny, we'd probably throw in chrome, but anyway, he's a little under 14, so we're gonna keep this one. So apparently the wind is the factor here today. These fish, they're up there way shallower than I thought they would be, and the wind's blowing right into that corner. And we threw a crankbait, we threw a worm, but this rattle trap or red-eye shad tends to be triggering the strike a little better. And what you'll find when the water's cold like this, it has a little tighter wiggle. And they like a little tighter wiggle when it's this time of year. Oh, I kind of hooked him under the chin. Boy, you can tell they've been eating shad, because even though they're not terribly big, they are really healthy. That's probably a 2-pounder, and he got it in the side of the mouth. Sometimes catch 3 or 4 like that, you ought to check your color, because they're swiping at it instead of eating it. But 1 3/4 pounds. And if you can look out here, what you'll see is it's just a flat in the corner of the lake, and the wind's blowing into it. And we fished through here, but we stayed about 50 yards off the bank because I thought they'd be deeper. The second time we came through here, the wind had been blowing for a couple of hours. Looks like some of these fish might have moved up, which probably means some of the baits moved up. I've been looking for bait in deeper water, it's just not there. So you just have to take what they give you. Today they want a red-eye shad. So what can happen this time of year too? Winter is a great time to catch them congregated up. And that's what we apparently have here. On 3 casts, I've caught 3. And we're not editing anything out. They're just in this corner. They're not real big ones, but I guarantee you there's some big ones up there with them. And we're just throwing that red-eye shad up into the windy corners. And I guess that'd be the lesson I learned from today. In my mind, they were going to be a certain place. Then we fished all those places, and we hadn't caught any. We moved a little shallower than you would think, and that's where they are. So we're going to keep throwing in there and try to catch some more. I caught another one. This one he's either a little bigger or he's hooked under the chin like that other one was. We're supposed to keep everything 14 inches and under here to help the guy out that owns the lake. But this may be a throwbacker right here, which is fun. It's a lot of fun. when you fish these baits, you want a rod with a good backbone, but you also want one with a limber tip. And he's gonna be close, we'll probably measure him, but when they're eating it like that, if you can see that, he hit it head first because he's got that front hook. That means you're throwing the right color. If they're eating it head first and getting it all the way in their mouth, stay with that color. If you're having them nip at it and you're missing a bunch and you're getting them just on the back hook or on the outside, you might want to try changing colors. But I'm about to do a little surgery on him to get that one out. Yeah, this fish right here kind of knocked it at me. So it's either a little one hooked underneath or it's a big one. It would be the former of the two. But man, are we ever having fun. It's, you know, you come out and it's been in the 20s and 30s and it gets warm for a week or two. And I mean, these fish, they're really wanting to get up and spawn, but it's just a little early. So that's the advantage of that. They're feeding up, getting ready to go on the bed. And that was our hope getting here, that they would chase something. We wouldn't have to fish slow. And that's what we found. So there you go. So what we were doing, we were catching a lot of 12, 13, 14-inch fish. And it was clear there are a lot of fish here. And it's awful fun, but we were hoping to maybe catch a bigger one. So I tied on a chatterbait, and I'll show you what that is. A little bit bigger profile bait to try to catch a little bit bigger fish. I think he is a little bigger, but he's not big, but he's a bigger fish than what we were catching in that school, which is kind of cool. Pull him in here, look at him. Oh yeah, he's a nicer one. He's still a 14-inch or under keeper, but see how he ate it? Same thing I was telling you. So a lot of times this time of year, you're catching them on crawfish color, like orange and stuff. And I had a couple of fish come up and nip at that color, but this shad color, they're just eating it deep. So we know that's what we're doing. So this is called a chatterbait. The generic term is a bladed jig. It's a jig with like a lip on it. And it's great for fishing heavy cover and grass and stuff. It comes through it really good. And I did a white with a little chartreuse on the tail to imitate these shad they're eating. So we'll see if we can catch another one. So we threw the chatterbait for several casts. And we caught one, but it's hard to, you know, you try stuff like that, but it's hard when they were biting another bait so good. So we picked this back up and had a bite and caught another one real quick. So, you know, if you're learning how to bass fish, this is one of the best baits you need to have. You need to have some kind of plastic worm and get a rattle bait like a red-eye shad, because it just imitates so many things they eat, and they're easy to throw, and then you don't have to set the hook real hard. And you can tell from the day we're catching them on. So we got another one. One thing you need to remember too, because typically when you're fishing this kind of bait, it's a bait we call a chuck and wind. Most people just throw it and wind it, but today, like if you're not getting bit, I got him in the gill plate. If you're not getting bit, try varying your retrieve. Alex was kind of helping me out back here and found out that a slower retrieve, but a pause also really helped. I don't know how I'm gonna get him off, but think about that when you're fishing. If they're not biting it, just chucking and winding, you know, reel 10 times, pause it for just a split second. What that does, if they're thinking about eating it and they're behind it, if you stop it, man, they're gonna probably eat it if they run into it. So just something to think about. So we still catching them on the rattle bait, but we didn't get a bite for a few casts. So basically all I did was move the boat and change the casting angle, and threw this one kind of a different direction. Same place, just a different angle that came in front of him. And I caught this one. This is a little nicer fish. They're all about the same length, 12 to 14 inches, and then but they're fat, healthy, getting ready for the spawn. We had a really great day on the lake today, particularly great day for late winter. Caught a lot of fish, had a really fun day on the lake, but we tried a lot of different things. We actually started trying to catch them on a drop shot, didn't catch any on that. We tried throwing a crankbait. We caught one or two on that, but it just didn't seem to be the deal. We threw a little crawl around some. We tried a whole bunch of different things, and actually probably what I would consider the last resort was throwing that red-eye shad. It was something I didn't really think was gonna work on this day. Actually, Alex caught one that turned us on to that. But we tried lots and lots of different things before we got to the thing that works. And you know, a lot of times in life, we're that way. We try a lot of different things to fulfill us in our lives. And none of those things are terribly bad. We think about money, we think about fame, success, friends, all the stuff that you can have. We think about all those things. But you know, really, none of those things at the end of the day fulfill. In fact, the only thing that's going to fulfill you is a relationship with Jesus Christ. It says it this way in Colossians chapter 2, verses 6 through 10. It says, "So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in Him, rooted and built up in Him, strengthened in the faith you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of the world rather than on Christ. For in Christ all the fullness of the deity lives in bodily form, and in Christ you have been brought to fullness. He is the head over every power and authority." So if you want to be fulfilled, the only way to be fulfilled is not through the things you have or the money you make or even the relationships you have. It's through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's how you know how to live your life also. He tells us in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, that He has great plans for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us all a hope and a future. So I want to encourage you guys that know Christ to really seek Him in your life daily. And if you don't know Christ, the way to have a relationship with Him is to confess that He is Lord of your life, to admit that you're a sinner, to confess that you are that, to ask Him to come into your heart and to be Lord of your life. Hey, thanks so much for watching today.
Tightline Fishing is being brought to you by Kismer Rods, Big Bite Baits, Buckeye Lures, Spike It Outdoors, National Audio Visual Services.
So we fished all the way around, caught a bunch of them on a rattle trap, but it got really cloudy and the wind started blowing really hard. So I picked up this bigger profile bait, a chatterbait, and this is actually a chatterbait. And since they were feeding on, we think they were feeding on these shad so good, I pulled up a shad color one. I thought this fish might be quite a bit bigger, but I'm not sure he is. Let's see what he looks like. I haven't seen him yet. He's a little bigger. He's maybe a throwback. But that's a chatterbait. It's a bladed jig. It's got a metal lip, and I fish with like a Zoom Super Fluke on the back, and since they were feeding on shad, I chose a shad color one. That's about a nice 2-pounder. Probably gonna let that one go, let him get bigger. So we kept throwing the, oh, he's got me in a stump. Come out of that. Got me in a stump. And it's a good fish. We kept throwing this, there he is. Oh, nice one. This white chatterbait. And we kept saying we ought to get a big one at some point. And this is the one we were been looking for. If I can give 100 stumps right here, if I can keep him out of it. Oh, he came off. It was a 5-pounder. It was a 5-pounder. He just kept coming around stumps and around stumps. In fact, I'm gonna need to retie my line. If you have one get you around stumps like that, make sure you check your line, because I might have to change. That was a 5-pounder. That's just the way it goes sometimes when they get you down in stuff. So we're still throwing this chatterbait. I've had a couple fish kind of miss it. This one hit it real good. I think I got him. You can see how far down in the mouth he got that one. So he was eating it right. You gotta be adaptable when it's times like this, and be willing to change to something else. And today, it was the wind that triggered it for me. When the wind got up so much, we changed baits. It's a great bait for the wind, a chatterbait. So we're still throwing the chatterbait. We had a little bit of a rain delay, but these fish, man, it's late winter. You wouldn't think they'd be up, but that fish was in probably 1.5 foot of water. So it just goes to show you it has as much to do with the wind and the cloud cover as it does with the water temperature. So if you got some wind, go with more of an active bait, and don't be scared to fish, unless the water's in the 40s. If it's in the high 50s, almost 60, they'll get up there shallow. And that's where that one was. He's a nice little 1.5-pounder. So when I'm fishing this chatterbait, I fish it real similar to a spinnerbait, just kind of a steady retrieve, and you'll actually feel the lip moving just like a crankbait. And every once in a while, I'll just give it a little jerk to, like if there's fish chasing, it might trigger them to strike. But for today, I'm fishing it slow and low in the water column, because even though they're up there shallow, it's still winter time and they're still cold-blooded. But it's just a pretty steady retrieve, and every once in a while you give it a little jerk, and it'll come over wood and grass and stuff real good. So these corner, and we'll show you in a second what we're looking at. In ponds, they're really important, because when you get a place, it's not just blowing down the bank, it's a place for the bait to congregate. And that's what's happening here in this corner. The wind's blowing in here and it's congregating the bait. And when it does that, the fish will move in and follow the bait. Really important in the winter, don't forget to look for and follow bait. If you've never thrown a chatterbait before, it's a great bait to throw around cover. Like you can look around and see all these stumps we're fishing around. And the way it's set up, the hook is sticking up. It's a lot like a spinnerbait. The hook sticks up, and that bill will bump it over those logs and stuff. And a lot of times that'll trigger the strike. When it bumps over something, they'll hit. But we've caught quite a few within 50 yards of each other here, because this bait's congregated in this corner. Today seems to be a day of spots. We have to go to one spot and catch them. It's been that way with the rattle trap, and it's been that way with this bait. Fished all the way around and came back to where we've been catching them and caught another one. So the same spot we've been catching them in, we came back on the windy side, caught another one. And today, key has been cloud cover. I know I caught one in the sun a minute ago, but as soon as the clouds came back over, I caught another one. So on a chatterbait in the wind. Nice one. So we kept at it and kept at it. I finally got a pretty decent one if he'll stay on. They've been coming off on me. Let's see if we can't get this one in the boat. He's not huge, but he's a big fat one. And I want you to look at how that fish ate that thing. When they do that, you know you're throwing the right bait. And this fish, even though it's February, it is probably about to go on the bed. And it's got a, I don't know if y'all can see that, but there's a tail down in its mouth. So it's probably been eating brim or crawfish or something. I mean, look at the belly. It looks kind of like me. So we moved a little bit off of where we were and stayed on the windward side though. And I caught this one. He's a little nicer one. He's probably still under the size limit to keep. But man, has wind ever been key for us today. And when they get it in the mouth like that, it's the right bait. I've said that several times today. But wintertime, late winter, early spring fishing, bait is the key, water temperature and wind. And look for those three things and you'll probably catch some. So what we've been doing is we've noticed today that what I call kind of a spot day. We're not catching them all over the lake. We're catching them in real specific spots. But what'll end up happening is you'll kind of wear an area out. So what we've been doing the last couple times around is we'll fish it, catch 3 or 4, and then leave it for about 30 minutes. And with the wind blowing the way it is, they'll kind of replenish. And I missed one and caught one here just in the first couple minutes that we came. So that's what we're doing. Still catching them on the old chatterbait. The trailer I'm using is just a regular Zoom. It's the fluke, not the super fluke, but the fluke. And it's been working really good today. Dye the tail a little bit chartreuse. Hey everybody, we had a great day today on this small lake, late winter fishing. We started out just kind of trying to figure the pattern out. Ended up catching some on a red-eye shad, some chatterbait, but all in all, we had an awesome day. Hey, thanks for joining us and come see us next time.